everybody. My name is Stalin Mizrahi. I'm your local literature major. So the topic under discussion right now is Harper Lee's Go Set A Watchman, the summer's latest literary buzz. The title, I thought, and the book were particularly appropriate for this website because Go Set A Watchman is actually a pasuk from Isaiah, Yeshayahu, Perek Kaf Aleph, Pasuk Vav. Before anything else, why don't we read that pasuk so we have some context? And I thought that this webcast could be a very interesting discussion between Harper Lee's Perush and the Judaic Perush to the same verse. Because essentially, a book's title is its ikad, or its main function, and we could really look into what she has to say about it alongside popular Jewish strains of thought. Okay, so the pasuk. I'm going to read the English version from the JPS Tanakh. Harper Lee obviously took the King James version, which is essentially the same. It's just a few word differences. Okay, so without further ado, Perek Kaf Aleph, Pasuk Vav. It says, Kiko amar Eli Adonai, leh ha'amod ha'mitzapeh asher yeh yagid. For thus my Lord said to me, go set up a sentry, let him announce what he sees. Put into context, this is the Desert of the Sea pronouncement, which is Yeshayahu's prophecy on the fall of Babylon. And Yeshayahu speaks as a Babylonian in this segment of Pesukim, who sees the coming doom of Babylon. He sees it falling. And the first time that the word watchman appears is just the pasuk before, where it says, set the table to let the watchmen watch, eat and drink, to up the officers, grease the shields. It's referencing what actually happened in history, which was that on the night of Babylon's fall, Belshazzar, the king of Babylon, held a massive feast, and the invading army interrupted the feast and brought down the kingdom. So Yeshayahu is actually in context, and he's citing the feast and the need to set a watchman to see the impending doom. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go to Harper Lee, and we'll see where she first mentions her watchman, the basis for the title in her novel, and we'll see what she has to say about it. For those of you who didn't read the novel, this is a massive spoiler, but Atticus Finch, our beloved Atticus Finch, becomes a huge racist. The novel Go Set A Watchman was the original manuscript. To Kill a Mockingbird was taken from it, and in it, what we know is To Kill a Mockingbird is a flashback, and in this novel we see Atticus as an older man who's extremely bittered, who's extremely scared and nervous about the South society disintegrating, as many of them were in the 1960s, because a lot of their societal norms were being put under question, segregation, racial interactions, etc. So he's not the same Atticus. And Jean Louise Finch, who's this progressive New York adult woman at this point, is coming down to Alabama and is completely mortified at what her father has become, and is slowly realizing, what raised her, and that the man that she looked up to is not all that she thought he was. So she's talking to her Uncle Jack to try to make sense out of this discovery that the entire society that I have come to call my own are in fact committing a grave, grave sin. So Uncle Jack tells her, this is a quote from the book, it says, every man's island, Jean Louise, every man's watchman is his conscience. There is no such thing as a collective conscience. Okay. Fascinating in a historical sense. Why? Because this is clearly the Southerners' defense from the 1960s. This is, hey, society might be one way, but I'm good, right? I don't approve of segregation. I'm okay with the way things are going. I mean, I'm my own person. I'm the individual. It's It's a very American idea, a very Southern Baptist idea. Interesting to note that the original title, Up to Kill a Mockingbird, was Go Set a Watchman, but the reason that it wasn't popular and the reason why it was nixed in the end was because they felt that outside of the South, not enough people were biblically versed enough to understand it. So her commentary as a Southerner, and she was raised with the Bible and with Baptist preachers, were let's call it the most central place of Bible as it existed in America for those days. So this was the mainstream interpretation of that verse. Go set a watchman was expanded to mean set yourself a moral conscience. Now, that's not what we saw the Peshat HaPasuk saying. The Peshat HaPasuk, when we read it in our Bible, in our version, on a basic level, this watchman, so-called, was nearly a sentry. I mean, the JPS translation doesn't even say watchman, it says sentry. He was a posted guard, a herald to call out the impending doom. He was not a person who said right or wrong. He was basically a person saying duck, duck and cover. Like that's the equivalent there. So this is a little bit of an inflation of what that watchman was supposed to mean. As to what Uncle Jack told her was that, like even if we ran along with this interpretation of the watchman as a personal conscience and there is no collective conscience, we should be a little bit uncomfortable with that idea, especially having come off with Shabbat, a discussion of collective guilt and destruction, especially in light of that well-known pasuk that says that the third and fourth generations will be punished for the sins of their fathers. I'm going to cite now an article by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs that was published for Parashat Ki Teseh, where he actually explains it. He says that the third and fourth generations, feeling the sins of their fathers, that's a divine justice, and that what it essentially, a quote from his article, a good pull from his article, is he says the following: if we fail to honor our responsibilities as parents, then though no law will hold us responsible, society's children will pay the price. They will suffer because of our sins. It's not far-reaching to say that if you do something bad or not the greatest, your children will feel those effects. What we do in our lifetimes matter. They continue even if we do not. Rabbi Sachs even goes further to quote Maimonides in Sefer HaMitzvot when he says, let a person not say, I have not sinned, and if someone else commits a sin, that is a matter between him and God. This is contrary to the Torah. There is a sense of communal responsibility. There is a communal conscience on some level. We cannot live as isolated beings. And the way that Harper Lee perhaps squared her feelings about being in the South and being the region of the country under attack for its norms, for its ideals that were wrong. She's a member of that society who has to deal with that now. Her answer essentially is, I'm good, don't worry about it, I'm my own island. She set her watchman, so to speak. That is what the book was essentially about. It was about setting your own watchman, being your own lookout, but I think if placed into proper context, that watchman is a herald for society. It is the impending doom. The original intent of the verse can't be ignored. This was a guard set up for the downfall of society. It's more than an individual sense of right and wrong. You are part of a wider, greater world, no matter what you have to say or think about it. Harper Lee, at the end of the day, is a Southerner, and that led to her publications of her books, that led to her ideas, and she cannot pretend that she exists in a bubble. None of us can. What intrigued me was the idea that we don't have to go back to Milton to see a discussion of Bible in a wider context. It's here. It's all around us. It's being published in the latest newspapers and magazines. And if we care to look a little bit further, we'll see that we're not alone in our fascination with this book. It is still very much relevant. It is still very much a driver of trends. And most importantly, an inspiration for conversation. I'd like to say thank you to Esther Leventer for building this site, for allowing these discussions to be had, and I look forward to having more. Thank you.